At exactly 3:17 a.m., Ethan Walker's phone lit up the darkness of his bedroom with a cold blue glow that sliced through the silence. And the strange part was that Ethan wasn't fully asleep. He was drifting in that uneasy space between dreams and awareness, staring at the faint outline of the ceiling fan, listening to the distant hum of a passing car outside, when the unmistakable camera shutter sound echoed from his nightstand. It wasn't loud, but in the stillness of that hour it felt explosive, deliberate, impossible to ignore. Ethan's eyes snapped fully open because he hadn't touched his phone, hadn't rolled over, hadn't even moved his arms from where they rested across his chest. For several long seconds he lay frozen, convincing himself it must have been part of a dream or some delayed notification. But the screen dimmed slowly, casting the room back into heavy shadow, and the silence that followed felt wrong. Not peaceful, not ordinary, but watchful. After nearly a full minute of arguing with himself, Ethan reached over, his fingers trembling slightly, unlocked the phone and opened the gallery. There it was, a brand new photo, time-stamped 3:17 a.m. His throat tightened instantly because the image wasn't blurry or random like an accidental pocket shot. It was steady, centered, perfectly framed on his bedroom door. Ethan didn't remember sitting up, didn't remember picking up the phone, and yet the perspective suggested someone had intentionally aimed it. In the photograph, the door was slightly open, revealing a thin slice of darkness from the hallway beyond. Ethan's pulse began pounding in his ears because he always locked that door before sleeping, always. A ritual he never skipped. Slowly, almost mechanically, he turned his head toward the real door across the room. It was closed, completely shut. He looked back at the photo. In the image, the door was clearly ajar, and in the narrow gap between the door and its frame was something darker than the surrounding shadow, a vertical shape that didn't belong. Ethan zoomed in, telling himself it was compression noise, low-light distortion, anything logical. But the more he enlarged it, the more it resembled the faint outline of a face, an eye barely reflecting a sliver of light. His mouth went dry. He sat up quickly and stared at the real door, expecting movement, a creak, breathing. Nothing. The house was silent. Ethan lived alone. At least he thought he did. He checked the time again. 3:18 a.m. Only a minute had passed, then a colder realization settled in. The photo had been taken with the rear camera, meaning the phone had been facing outward, but Ethan clearly remembered placing it face down on the nightstand before falling asleep. He leaned over slowly. It was still face down, exactly where he left it, so how had it taken that angle? How had it captured the door so precisely without moving? A thought began forming in his mind, one he didn't want to entertain. What if the phone hadn't moved at all? What if something else had? Forcing himself to act, Ethan got out of bed and walked toward the door, each step heavy, deliberate. He opened it slowly. The hallway was empty, dark, stretching toward the living room. He flipped on the lights and checked every room, every closet, every window lock. Nothing. No signs of entry. No disturbed furniture, no unfamiliar sounds. He even opened his security camera app. No alerts at 3:17 a.m., no recorded movement. When he returned to his bedroom, trying to steady his breathing, he compared the live view of the room with the image again. And that's when he noticed something subtle but horrifying. In the photograph, the framed picture beside the door was tilted slightly. In reality, it hung perfectly straight. The image wasn't just different, it showed a version of his room that didn't exactly match, like it had been taken seconds before something shifted. His eyes drifted downward toward the bottom corner of the photo, and his entire body locked in place. Beneath the edge of his bed, barely visible in the shadows, were pale fingers gripping the mattress, knuckles tight, as if someone had been hiding underneath while he slept. Ethan dropped to his knees instantly and looked under the bed. Nothing but dust and storage boxes, no space for a person, no hand. Relief flooded him so suddenly he almost laughed, until the phone vibrated violently in his grip. One new photo added, timestamp 3:22 a.m. Ethan's stomach dropped. He didn't want to open it. Every instinct screamed not to, but his thumb betrayed him. The second image filled the screen, taken from high in the corner of the bedroom, looking down. Ethan was visible in the frame, kneeling, staring at his phone. And behind him, near the now wide-open door, stood a tall figure, its head nearly touching the ceiling, its features swallowed by shadow, except for two faint reflections where eyes should have been. Ethan's breathing turned shallow. Slowly, carefully, he lifted his gaze from the screen and turned toward the ceiling corner where the angle originated. There was nothing there, no camera, no device. When he looked back at the phone, the image had changed. The figure was closer now, its arms slightly raised, and in that moment, Ethan understood the horrifying truth. The photos weren't showing what had happened. They were showing what was about to happen. The clock ticked to 3:23 a.m. The air in the room grew colder, heavier. A floorboard creaked behind him. Ethan shut his eyes, bracing for something to grab him, to breathe on him, to whisper. But nothing did. Seconds passed, then a full minute. Silence. When he slowly opened his eyes, the room was exactly as it had always been. The door was closed. The air felt normal. His phone screen was black. Heart pounding, Ethan checked the gallery again. Both photos were gone. No record of them, no timestamp, nothing. Even the battery log showed no camera usage at 3:17 a.m. It was as if the entire event had been erased. Ethan didn't sleep the rest of that night. He kept the lights on until morning, and when sunlight finally poured through the blinds, warm and ordinary and real, he felt almost foolish for letting fear take over. Days passed. Nothing strange happened again. No mysterious photos, no creaking floors, no cold air at 3:17 a.m. Eventually, Ethan replaced his bedroom door lock, updated his phone, and even laughed about the incident with friends. Sometimes, in the dead of night, he still wakes up and checks the time, 3:17 a.m. But the phone stays dark, silent, harmless, and that's the part people love to hear. Nothing was ever there. No figure, no hand, no shadow in the doorway. Just a glitch, a trick of a tired mind in the early hours of the morning. Because sometimes the scariest moments aren't proof that something is watching you. They're reminders of how powerful your imagination can be. And in Ethan Walker's house, after that one strange night, 3:17 a.m. became just another minute on the clock.